Hey, what's up guys, it's Connor, and today I'm going to be doing a book review for Skyward by Brandon Sanderson. It's been a little while since I've read a Brandon Sanderson book, so I figured it was high time, and this is one of the only books by him that I haven't read, so this was it. If you guys don't know, this is a science fiction young adult series, or the first book in a young adult series. It follows a girl named Spensa. She lives on a planet called Detritus. On this planet, they're forced to live in these cavernous warrens, and she lives in one that's called Igneous. Her people constantly have to defend themselves against an alien race called the Krell, who fly in through the atmosphere and attack them. At the beginning of the book, you find out that Spensa's father was a part of the DDF, which is the Defense Force, and she wants to follow in his footsteps. The only problem with that is that at the beginning of the book, still, you find out that her father was killed for fleeing battle, and this whole society is really based around courage and not being a coward. Being called a coward is like fighting words, and you will defend yourself from being called a coward, but her father was killed because he was being cowardly, and she has to deal with the repercussions of that because she has also been labeled the daughter of a coward and potentially a coward herself. After that, there's a big time jump, and it follows her as she really still wants to be a part of the DDF. She wants to fly in these different ships. She wants to protect her home. She wants to defeat the Krell, everything like that, and she needs to figure out a way to make that happen. It just follows her as she's having to deal with a lot of backlash. She has to jump over a lot of hurdles, etc., to try to get and earn her place into the DDF and to be able to fly like her father did. And she really wants to defeat the Krell and prove that she is not a coward, and also to clear her father's name and make sure that everyone knows that he was actually a hero and not a coward. As usual with my book reviews, I'm going to go through my pros, go through my cons, give you my rating, and be done. My first pro for this book was that I really liked how all of the characters were very distinct from one another. I never found myself getting any too confused. I didn't think any two sounded the same. With that said, I do think that some of the characters were a bit shallow, and their entire characterization was just their quirks. There's a character named Quirk, but all the characters have one thing about them that sets them apart. I liked that because it's easy to tell them apart, but in this book, we don't go really deeper than that for most of the characters. We get a little information about the characters, but it's not as much as I was hoping for. So I like that because I was able to keep them separate in my mind, but I was hoping to have a little bit more depth than that for the characters, especially because it's Brandon Sanderson, and also this book is quite large. So there was definitely the space, I feel like. Regardless, I was able to keep them separate, and that was something that was important because there are a lot of characters that Spin interacts with on a day-to-day basis. She has her entire group that she's learning how to fly these different ships with and everything like that. So being able to keep them all distinct was nice. For instance, a character named Quirk always talks about what the Saints would say or what the Saint would say. Jerkface is very formal. He never lightens up. Spin is very intense. She actually reminds me a little bit of a sword that's in the Cosmere. This is not set in the Cosmere as far as I know. It reminds me of Nightblood, who is this sword who's really intense and really bloodthirsty, and Spin is kind of like that. She's also very dramatic, so she can be like, whoa, calm down. It is addressed why she's like that, so if you go into this novel and you're like, wow, I really don't like how intense she is, it is addressed later on. And all the characters have this. Like, Ned is known for being very stupid, although he's not as stupid as everyone thinks that he is, that kind of thing. I really liked the premise of this book. I really liked how Brandon really wanted to write a boy and his dragon story, but that has been done 1,000,001 times, so it's a girl and her ship instead of a boy and a dragon, so I really like that. With that being said, I really do like her ship. I really liked Mbot. I thought that he really added a lot of lightheartedness to this story. A lot of the characters have quite humorous interactions with each other, so that kept me reading and kept me entertained, especially Mbot. Mbot is very sassy, and I liked him for that. One thing was Doomslug. I'm like, what happened to Doomslug? No idea. I don't know if I just missed what happens with Doomslug, but I did like Doomslug. I just wish that we knew what happened with her. I also really liked a character named Rig. I thought he really did balance out all these characters that really want to be a part of the DDF and to fly around and defeat the Krell. I like that he had a different goal for his life, and that showed that there are other people in this society that just want to live a normal life and don't want to be at risk of being killed and shot down all the time. And following that same vein, I really enjoyed Spin's grandmother and mother. I thought that their takes and their viewpoints of the world were really interesting as well, especially Spin's mom. I really liked that character because I just thought that with everything that's happened with Spin's father and how the society has treated them, I do like Spin's mother's take on everything and how she's living her life. So they were great. Moving on from that, I did like the setting of this world. I liked this cavernous setting and how they were all underneath the ground and then it was dangerous to live up top. I do think that the setting was a little bit limited just because we're only following this one community in this one part of this entire planet. And also you're only following people that are in the DDF. Like, you're only following Spin and how she is living in this DDF training time period of her life. So you don't really get to see the politics of the people that are living below the DDF. You don't really get to see the cultures and everything like that that have formed out of this group of people that used to be nomadic and then now have gathered together and are starting to form a more blended culture altogether by taking different pieces of the different clans and everything like that. I forgot to say that this group of people, when they got to this world, were forced to split up, and they split up into different clans, and now they've come back together. So I like that that was there, the world building and everything like that, but I wanted more of the culture. I wanted more information about this setting, but I do like what we have gotten so far. Again, this is the first book in a series, and I'm sure we're going to explore more of those things in the future of the series. I have liked what we've gotten. I'm excited for more. I already talked about this, but this whole society being based around being brave versus being a coward was really interesting, and how it motivated people to do things that are just kind of stupid because they are fearful of being called a coward, which is kind of weird because they are so scared of being called a coward that they're like cowed into doing something else. And I think that that's very true. I think that people are so scared of being labeled as this, so they just do that. And this society really reflects this. So I enjoyed the exploration of being brave, being a coward, what those words mean, how they interact with our society, and how we view ourselves and other people, everything like that. That was well done in here. This story is also very action heavy. There is a lot of fighting. There's a lot of scenes where they're training and learning how to fly these different ships. There are a lot of scenes where they're actually fighting the Krell and everything like that. And because it is so action heavy and because it is so high stakes, they're fighting the Krell, who are trying to, keep them from getting up to the surface and protecting themselves and gathering in large numbers. I liked that this is actually a dangerous situation. There are a lot of characters that don't make it to the very end of the story, so I really, really liked that. I like when there's a dangerous situation and there are a lot of consequences and casualties when it comes to a war. Brandon Sanderson often has big climactic final scenes in his books, and this one is no different. It really shakes things up, and that's part of the reason why I'm very excited to get my hands on the second book. I do think that the story is going in a really good direction and one that I'm really interested in learning more about. I did like the direction that this story is headed in at the very end of the novel, so I guess we'll see in the next book when that comes out. Now I'm going to talk about a couple of cons. My first con has to do with the plotting a little bit. I do like the direction that the story is headed in, but I do think that this first book was a little slow. There were a lot of scenes of them just fighting the Krell to kill off characters, and I think that the plot could have progressed a little bit quicker if we had cut some of those out. We didn't need so much training. I do like training scenes, but it stagnated Spin moving forward and learning more and working against being called a coward. So Spin makes progress in spurts instead of continuously working towards her goal, which, that can happen, but I was expecting this to be almost like a non-stop. She's trying to figure out secrets. She's trying to prove her dad's innocence. She's trying to get to be a part of the DDF and get her ship, but there are a lot of down moments and there are a lot of scenes that are just fighting to fight, which is fun, but I wasn't really expecting that in here. It seemed like Spin's goal of clearing her father's name and being a part of the DDF wasn't strong enough to get her to be constantly working towards that goal. She allows herself to kind of float around a little bit, so I could find those parts a little slow. I originally put off reading this book for quite a while just because I wasn't sure how I was going to feel about it. The last YA book that I read by him was Calamity, and I didn't love that book that much, so I was worried about this one. I do think that Brandon Sanderson does adult fantasy better than he does YA fantasy. It almost feels like he's holding himself back when he's writing YA. Like, I feel like while I was reading this, I could feel Brandon wanting to do something, but then having to pull himself back because it's YA instead of adult. It was weird for me to read this knowing that if he had written this for adults, it would have been, I don't want to say better, but I think that I'm just very used to Brandon's adult style, and so reading his YA style is jarring to me, which is totally a personal con, but I think I just generally enjoy his adult works more than his YA works, which is so weird because I love his middle grade series. Like, the Alcatraz series is so good. Definitely recommend that one. And my last con for this was that I felt like the romance in this book happened weirdly. I felt like the romance was almost like a light switch. Like, it wasn't very romance very much at all. Like, I could tell that this was going to be the love interest, and then we get to one scene and it's like, click, they're in love. And I've seen other people think that the romance was really well done and was paced throughout the story, but I disagree. I think that it was this speed, and then after this one point it's like, boom, we're in love. So I didn't fully appreciate the love situation in here. I think that it could have been more gradual and I would have been a lot more on board, but as it is, I'm expecting one of them to die. So we'll see if that happens or not. In the end, I had a really good time while reading this. I think the characters were really funny. I really liked the plot and where the story is headed. I loved Mbot and I loved her interactions with Doomslug. So I had a great time and I ended up giving this book 4 stars. So that's going to be my review on Skyward by Brandon Sanderson. If you liked it, please give it a big thumbs up and comment down below if you've read this book, what your thoughts were on it. Did you have any similar feelings to mine? Did you have any feelings that were opposing mine? Like, did you think that the romance was really well done? Anything else you want me to know, leave it down below and I will talk to you guys next time. Bye.